And actually, I think that revolves around the whole idea of your podcast about mindset and who you surround yourself with. I think it was a quote from Morgan Freeman, but it was awesome. It was something, and I'm paraphrasing here, it was something along the lines of, don't accept criticism from people you would never go to for advice. I know and I fully recognize that I am and have been extremely fortunate to have very supportive parents. Even when I got the message saying we're bringing you to LA, I was over the moon. One of the first people that I met when I went to LA was Ili Samaha, and he owns the Chinese theater. He owns Yamashiro. He's produced over 85 movies.
Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us today. This is the very first podcast that we are doing on Uncharted mindset. This is an exciting journey, and to start off this exciting journey, I have a very special guest. Now, I'm going to let him introduce himself because he has some incredible things that he's already done, and he's well known in the Hollywood space. So, ladies and gents, I would like to welcome Mr. Daniel Couts. How are you today, sir?
I'm very well, and what an honor to be on your first podcast. This is awesome.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been looking at a list of names that I thought I should bring on as the very first one, and I thought you and I have been talking for a while. Maybe we should start with you because I like all the things that you have been doing so far and the Hollywood space. And obviously, you know, I'm in the sort of, I guess, photography and film space somewhat myself, maybe not to your level, but based on that, I thought, yep, you know what? Let's start with Daniel.
No, I'm grateful.
If you can just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So my name is Daniel Couts. I'm primarily a film director. I started in the industry probably when I was 14, 15, actually doing projects that were getting some attention. And I've done like various forms of different projects, whether it's music videos, commercial projects, but I've always loved cinema. Like since I was a kid, I just loved cinema and that vibe, those kind of projects. So I've always considered myself a feature film, as far as mentality goes, director, and that's always what I wanted to work towards. And now I'm honored to be in a position where I can do that for a living. With my company, with my wife, we work together as well, and it's awesome journey. I don't know if you wanted to kind of know how I started, but
yeah, man, let's hear it. I wanted to, because this whole channel, obviously, the Uncharted mindset is because, you know, we have, as entrepreneurs, we don't know exactly what direction we're going to go in. It's literally uncharted up here, hence the name of the channel. So everyone's journey is going to start somewhere, and you're going to go through very strange, literally strange environments, strange times in your life. So this is what this is about. So I would love to hear your journey, and I'm sure everyone watching would also love to hear how you go into Hollywood. Is Hollywood really what they say it is, what we hear about on TV and, you know, things like that? So yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, definitely. So a little bit of a preface. I come from a family from London. Our background is Greek, but my family has always been in the music space. All of my family. It's even how my parents met and got married. They were singers and entertainers in the music space. My dad had his own band. He was touring the whole of Europe. So I was, even from a very young age, my dad wanted to help me and encourage me to pursue music, because he saw from a young age I was picking things up really quickly. I had this kind of talent for various instruments and things. So my dad wanted to encourage me, and we moved to Greece when I was around 7 years old, and I went to a specialist music school, and I just pursued my music passion. But the thing is, what I realized is, although I enjoyed music and I have a passion for music, I'll admit I was pretty lazy when it came to music, because I had a very strong ear, so I could pick up things quite quickly. But I got a little bit lazy when it comes to like practicing and rehearsing and things. So basically what I'm trying to say is I loved music, but not enough to pursue it and kind of dedicate my life to it. So I just kind of relied on it as a hobby and viewed it as a hobby. And I completely coincidentally came across the medium of videos and moving image and all that on my own, because my dad had a camcorder when we were living in Greece, and he never used to use it. It was an old mini DV Sony camcorder, and I found it in this big silver briefcase, and I asked my dad if he was going to use it. He said no, I could use it, and that was it. I was obsessed. I was around 11 years old, and I was just obsessed with it. I was learning how to. I was videoing myself, doing like dialogues with myself. I was playing different characters. I asked my dad to buy me like Superman costumes, and I used to play around. He had a big blue screen, like an actual. My dad is like, even if he's got one project to do, he'll just go all out and buy the best of everything, even if he never uses it again. So he had a proper good quality blue screen, and I taped it up on the wall, and I put it over this chair that I had, and I was pretending to fly as Superman, and I put a fan in my face, and I just fell in love with it, because for me it was like, you have just this door opens up and you can do anything. That's how I felt. I can do anything with video and film and editing, and although I knew nothing about the art, but I was just learning. I was on YouTube all the time. I was Googling different things, and I was obsessed. And really, that never subsided since that age. And it got to the point where I loved it, and I even said to my parents, I love music, but I actually want to go into film and video. And that's what I did. We moved back to London. I went on to study film and TV. And I just wanted as much experience as I could get. So I was just doing music videos for friends. I started off, and I even remember I was 16, and I wanted to start going to the gym, and I found a gym close to our house. And I walked in. I was 16 years old, and I said to the owner, because it was a like privately owned gym. I said to the owner, if you want to build your business, let me do all your videos for you, and then let me train here for free, because it was quite an expensive gym. And he said sure, yeah.
You're delivering value in return, I guess, right? So,
for me, I was like, well, why not? It was a great deal for me, and obviously I could practice. I loved it, and I did all their corporate videos and campaigns and all that for them. But yeah, I just kind of went from project to project, learning more, working with more people. But it was I used to do a lot of it myself, and that kind of forced me to learn a little bit of everything, just enough to get by, which I find very, very useful, because I'm in a position now where, by all means, I don't know everything about every aspect of film, but I know a little bit about everything. And I think that's also vital for directors to know a little bit about everything, because at least they're in a better position to know what they want and kind of how to achieve it.
But this is the thing, you can't know everything in one go. This is something, it's a journey. So at the end of the day, everyone's learning something new every single day, or at least people should learn something new every single day. There's a saying, jack of all trades, master of none. People want to learn all the different things and then become a master of none. I think in some respects that saying is wrong, because in today's day and age, you have to at least have different skill sets. Because if the pandemic proved this a few years ago now, considering, if you have one skill set and you're stuck, and then your business or that skill set is no longer used because of what's going on in the world, you're pretty much stuck. So you do need to have other skills. So you being able to learn different skills on a daily basis it is very important. And this is why I say that everyone should actually learn something new every day, because you never know when you're going to need it.
And I think that applies to absolutely everything. I mean, even in your specialty, when it comes to like trading and all the different things, how many investment specialists say always diversify, never put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. I mean, with trading, it's not just simply sitting there looking at the charts and deciding which either to buy or sell. There's a lot more involved with that. You got to treat it as a business. You got to manage your psychology up here. That's the number one thing that most people just don't do. They just think simply, oh, I can make 10 grand in a day. Wow. But to make that 10 grand in a day, you got to be okay up here. You got to be able to manage everything properly and so on and so on. So yeah, it's not just as simple as pressing a button and then, you can make endless money. It's not how it works.
If only, I think because I even had and still do have many friends that they hear the amount of money that you can make in any given industry, and immediately they're like, they want to drop everything and do it. But nothing is easy. Money is never easy to make. You might kind of hit the jackpot in terms of you might have a job that you love doing, or you might have become good at something, and then it will become a bit easier. But it's never like jump into something and immediately going to get rich.
No, that's not how it works. I mean, making money once you have the right skills and the right mentality makes things very easy to make money. I would probably say it that way. But if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the knowledge, and then you expect to get rich overnight, that's definitely not how it works. The whole point of why I said that is because everybody needs a skill, and you learning something new every single day is a building block to your journey, because your journey is going to continuously change. It's never going to be what you did today is never going to be the same tomorrow and the day after, and so on and so on. Every single day is a different challenge. In at least in our lines of work, no 2 days are ever the same.
No, exactly. And the thing is, I've been in positions where sometimes, and this isn't always the case, but I found it's worked a few times for me. Sometimes it's better if you just do something yourself, because not everyone is going to understand your vision. And again, I'm speaking as director, but I think this can apply to other kind of avenues of life as well. Not everyone is going to share the same vision you have, or not everyone is going to share the same goals, or not everyone's going to be on the same path. Especially if you've got kind of goals that you're working towards, countless people will probably say, "Oh, you're thinking too big," or "you're crazy," or "come back down to earth," or those kind of things. But that's as far as life is concerned. But when it comes to, for example, like my profession, and it's happened to me before, where I've worked on projects and I've got like team members or someone doing one project, for example, someone was kind of overlooking the music side, and they just couldn't understand what I was trying to tell them. I was explaining it as clearly as I could, and they just weren't understanding. And it got to the point where I said, look, with all due respect, I'll do it myself. And that's where my music side came in, and my father actually helped me. We just sat down and did all the music ourselves. And this wasn't for a project that was like mine. It's not like it was a passion project. It was a project that I was helping someone else with. And I said to their music person, don't worry, I will do it, because I know what this project needs. I have a style, something that I'm trying to do. Let me do it. And because obviously we know about music and whatever, we did the music, and it was exactly what I wanted. No one else. Sometimes you're not gonna have people that get you. So knowing a little bit more about the other areas, I think, can help, because I don't think, again, and this applies both to like my profession, but also to life, I don't think it's ever a good idea to water down your vision to meet some other people's expectations or something. If you know what you want, don't settle for anything less.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we recently had a conversation. I'm not gonna say it on this podcast. We'll keep it on the quiet for now. But if you remember, we started projects a few years ago, and the vision that I had, other people did not have. So, you know, I think Snoop Dogg said a saying once. I think it was Snoop Dogg. He said that if I'm going up, I'm leveling up in life, and if you're not coming with me, technically speaking, you're actually leveling down. You're not even staying stationary, because there's a mental choice that you're making. So rather than you leveling up with me, you are actually trying to drag me down with you. That's literally what the saying is, right? Drag me down with you, which means you're not actually being stationary. You're actually going down mentally.
Yeah.
So why aren't you leveling up? And in those circumstances, you know, I think walking away from people, and it's not easy to walk away from people. I mean, I'm doing projects currently, as you know, that it's very hard to work with people because no one will have that same mindset as you. It's near impossible. And for people like that, unfortunately, you got to make the tough choice and say, we're going to do this. I'm going to do this by myself. But then those people actually come back to you in the future when they say, oh, I knew you were going to make it. That's the problem. And then it's too late. You know, you're not there in my sunny days. In my rainy days. Don't expect to be there when the sun comes out.
Yeah. Actually, I think that revolves around the whole idea of your podcast about mindset and who you surround yourself with. And I think it was literally yesterday, I just coincidentally came across a post. I think it was on Instagram. And again, because I just came across it, don't hold me to this, but I think it was a quote from Morgan Freeman. I think it was Morgan Freeman. But it was awesome. It was something, and I'm paraphrasing here, it was something along the lines of, don't accept criticism from people you would never go to for advice. And I think that's awesome, because if I'm not going to come to you for advice, why would I ever worry about what you think?
It's like your parents teaching you that you should be a millionaire when they're not themselves, right?
Yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, people, you know, sometimes might have good ideas. You know, I never want to be disrespectful to anyone, but that was awesome, and I want to keep that in mind. Don't accept criticism from people you wouldn't go to for advice, because really, I think personally, having a mindset of knowing where you want to go doesn't mean you have to be an idiot to people. It doesn't mean you have to disrespect people, or like if someone tries to say something, you just you know, like get the dust off your shoulder. You know, we're not better than anyone else. It just means that I'm trying to stay in a very specific lane. If you're not going to be like in that lane with me, that's fine. Just be a little bit further out, but don't try to interfere with where I'm just trying to go to, you know. And I think that's important, because as you said earlier as well, not everyone is gonna fully understand your vision, where you want to go, and it's happened to me many times.
And that's okay, because, you know, everyone has their own journey. Everyone is on a journey that no one else will be a part of in the same exact way as you are. That's every single person is unique in that way. So I just want to touch back on, you know, you mentioned your father being there and supporting you throughout the years that you were into music. How was that relationship as you grew older to where you are now? Because, you know, there's a lot of families. The reason I ask this question is because there's a lot of people who don't have the support of their family, or they have the support, but they don't. They have the support with the way that the parents want to support them, as opposed to the support that's needed. Does that make sense? So from where you were in terms of music, starting off with music and transitioning into being the director and going into film, how was the expectation from your father? Did he say, you know what, no, you need to stick with music because this is where it's like a family tradition? Or did he support you and say, cool, go for film, give it 100%?
That's a good question. So I know and I fully recognize that I am and have been extremely fortunate to have very supportive parents. Both my dad and my mum have been very, very supportive in general. I think deep down a little bit, my dad would have been a little bit upset. I wouldn't say disappointed or angry, just a bit upset that I didn't want to follow in the music footsteps. Because when my dad was growing up, his dad, who was also a musician, he was a violin player, and he used to gig all the time at weddings and late events. He didn't want my dad to grow up in the nightlife, so he would actually try to stop my dad from learning music. My dad would buy instruments, and his dad would break them. He would not. He was like, no way. He was against it. You're not going to become a musician. So because my dad had that, I think he was really, what he did, kind of overcompensate to help me, to just encourage me to pursue music. You know, he always said to me, "You have the talent, do it." You know.
But why was it? Why did he stop him from doing that? Is that something? Yeah. Why did his dad stop your dad from doing it? Yeah.
Because he did not want my dad to live the nightlife. To live a life where he's out at like late in, like coming home at like 6 a.m. and dealing with a different kind of audience when it's that late all the time, because you're in clubs, you're in weddings tend to be okay, although he's had some crazy experiences. And like, even if you spoke to my dad now and just asked him about his experiences, he's seen everything. He was working 7 days a week with not a single day off. For years, not a single day off for years. So he was doing really well, but he did live the nightlife. He lived that life, and his dad saw all the nasty side of that and just did not want that for my dad.
So it was like he had good intentions to not want him to do it, but maybe went around the wrong way of doing it.
Oh yeah. So my dad's side of the family is Cypriot, and that generation of Cypriots, they're very, if they have an idea of something, that's how the family should be, and they should be in line with what the parents want. It's very kind of strict. But you can understand he had good intentions. But again, actually interesting, credit to my dad. My dad knew what he wanted and he did it anyway. Well, that was kind of against what his dad wanted. But my dad was very successful in what he did, which is a really good example for me. But even when my dad saw that I loved film, and I just wanted to just do that non-stop, he was very, very supportive. I think he still deep down wanted me to continue music as much as possible. But he didn't. There wasn't an instance when they tried to hold me back or tried to stop me or anything like that. Even when it got to the point, because the first time I kind of left home and moved away, but like left for long periods of time on my own, was when I went to the States, when I got invited to go to Hollywood, because a lot of my work got recognized and people wanted to have meetings with me and chat about my work and potential collaborations and potential movies. And for me, it was like, what is going on? It's like, this is coming out of nowhere. It was, I did. I mean, that's, I thought, I was like, that's it. What is going on? This is a new chapter. This is more than one chapter. I feel like I've gone to the end of the book. But even when, because I had a chat with my parents, I said, I've been invited to go for a few weeks to LA and I don't know what might come of it. And people were loving my work and all that. And my parents were very supportive. They said, if you love it, if it's what you want, go.
No, that's great. So transitioning into the journey from, you were in UK at the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were going from UK to LA. What was the first impressions and your first initial thoughts once you got to LA? Was it what you expected or was it something completely different?
I grew up in London and obviously spent some years in Greece, and loving movies, right? So for me, even when I got the message saying we're bringing you to LA, I was over the moon. It was like a dream come true. Even before I went, when I went, I thought I was living a dream, because that's always how I viewed LA. I still view LA the same. I absolutely love LA and California and the States in general. But for me personally, LA was a big deal. You speak to some other people and they're like, it's, you know, whatever. But because me, it's like it's the entertainment capital of the world. It's Hollywood, man. If you're in Hollywood, if you're in that industry, the place you need to be, or the place that you'd love to visit is Hollywood, where everything gets made, all the major stuff anyway. So I very much had that. Even when I got to LA, I was struggling to comprehend what was happening. I was looking around, and like I got there late in the evening. I arrived even on the first day, and I was taken immediately. I was taken to the Hollywood sign. I was taken to the observatory. I was taken to just to look at stuff. Literally moments after I landed, and it was just I was taking it all in.
It felt like an overwhelming experience in a way.
100%.
So the thing with LA or Hollywood in general, you know, they say certain people that you have worked, I'm sure you can, if you can, that is, drop a few names of people that you have worked with. When it came to working with those people in Hollywood, what's the relationship like when you are new into the industry? And how do these actors and actresses take you, being a new director or an upcoming director, and how do they approach you and listen to, you know, do they listen to the instruction in the same way as they would with, I don't know, Christopher Nolan, for example, you know, well-known directors who have been around for decades? What's the kind of relationship people have with a new director who have been in the industry for a while in comparison?
That's a great question. So even now, I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the industry, with the business side of the industry and how the industry works, because it's if you want to climb the ladder or do things in a straightforward, correct way, it's very, very difficult.
I know where this conversation is going to go.
I'm not. I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to get in trouble. But no, listen. I think most people have either watched movies or read about it or documentaries or whatever about the type of industry and the difficulties of the Hollywood life, right? And the Hollywood life actually doesn't appeal to me. That's not really what I want to do. I just want to do what I love. And I love being obviously surrounded by the people who are in the industry. That's another thing that I loved about LA. It was just easy to bump into people. But to go back to what you're saying, how people view a new director, it's not necessarily how people who you're working with view a director, because I've never had an issue being on set with people not listening to me, because without trying to sound like an idiot, I know what I'm doing. I know what I want. I know what I'm trying to accomplish. So I'm very. I don't like. I don't just walk around with a confused face on set. I know what I want. So it's not as though I've given people the impression that I don't know what I'm doing. So I've never really had difficulties on set or people I've worked with, because, for example, many of our friends and contacts in the industry, they produce movies all the time. One of the first people that I met when I went to LA was Ili Samaha, and he owns the Chinese theater. He owns Yamashiro. He's produced over 85 movies. One of the iconic movies that he produced was The Whole Nine Yards with Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry, which is an awesome movie. So Ili is an awesome guy, and he was one of the first people I met, but we met so many other people and had chats with so many other people, influential people that understand the industry, people that are very successful in the industry. And Ili, among everyone else, basically. They're very supportive. I didn't have any issues with that. Where the issue lies with a new director is if you have to work with big named cast. I'm not worried after people meet me, because we can sit down and chat and they can understand, my vision, what kind of thing I want to accomplish. The thing is, there is this preconception in the industry, which is very common, where people will always ask, you might have a great pitch deck, a great screenplay, everything pretty much is, apart from all the funding is in place, and you're trying to package this movie. People will always ask, who's the director, right? And obviously, what cast are you trying to attract? That's where it becomes an issue, or it just becomes harder, because if you haven't done any major movies as a director, it's going to be hard to get big cast, A-listers and B-listers. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and rightly so. They've got to a point in their careers they don't just want to work with anyone who walks off the street and calls himself a director. Anyone can be a director. Let me just get that out there. Anyone can be a director. It doesn't mean they're going to be a good director, but anyone can be a director because you're a storyteller, okay? You might be bad at it, but you can still call yourself a director. No one's going to stop you. So actors have no doubt experienced this, and they have the who's directing? What has he done before? Oh, he hasn't done anything major. No, not interested. Investors will probably most likely ask the same thing. It will be very difficult, if not impossible, to get pre-sales for a movie if you're what they call a first-time director, first time with regards to feature films. And it's a situation that I have been in for the past few years, because although I've done so many different projects, I've directed different types of projects and short films, and I've written short films as well, and I've done TV shows and music videos and corporate videos. But even my short films show how cinematic and theatrical my vision is. It still means nothing when it comes to the industry and how people view you unless you've done feature films. So that, I would say, is the biggest difficulty with being a first-time director. Not necessarily how people treat you once they've met you. I haven't experienced that because, as I said, I know what I want and I know what my vision is. And I even had it once when I was doing a short film, and I worked with some awesome actors for a short film that I wrote and directed called Debt Valley in 2021 in LA.
You ever have a dog, Ezra?
No, I haven't.
I find them incredibly fascinating.
Leonard, did we really come all the way out here to talk dogs?
You know what I find most fascinating about them?
What?
Their loyalty. You see, Ezra, dogs are pack animals, which means that they're social creatures who prefer the company of other animals. It's what you call a survival mechanism. See, the success of the pack is determined by the members of the group relying on each other for survival. They truly believe that loyalty will keep them alive.
What's your point?
Disloyalty can be fatal.
And one of the actors, his name is DC Douglas. He's done a lot of stuff. He's done a lot of acting, big acting gigs.
Awesome short film, by the way. I watched it. It's really, really good.
Thank you. That was so much fun. But I'm never going to forget. I'm never going to forget what DC told me, because he said to me when before he met me, when he read the 2 or 3 pages of the screenplay for the audition, because we held proper auditions over a week. We were auditioning people, and he said when I read it, he said I loved it. I loved the character. I wanted to be in this, but I was worried, he said, because I looked at like the little synopsis that you guys put together, he said, and I saw, young director, hasn't done major things. He wrote and he's going to direct this, and he said that I was a little bit apprehensive. He said, but after I met you, he said everything, I was put at ease, and I couldn't wait. I could not wait, and I actually I was almost ready to beg you to be in the movie. He really wanted to be in it, and he was just his audition was just awesome, and I thought this is my guy. So things like that, I'm very, very grateful.
Did you have? Sorry to cut you. Yeah, did you have with DC Douglas? Did you have anyone else in mind that you wanted for that role, or what was your selection process with who you wanted to be in that film?
So I didn't. Even for like the feature films that we're working on at the moment, I never aim really high, never, because I'd be stupid to do that. I know my status in the industry at the moment. It's growing, but I'm not at the level where I can be like, I want him and him and him. No, I'm not delusional. And it's exactly the same with the short film. I didn't have any names in mind. I didn't even think I was going to get anyone with a good reputation, with a name. I simply wanted, and this is actually my approach to every film, I want the best actor, I want the best cast for the role. I don't care who it is. I don't care what they've done. If they're good for that role and they make that character come to life, they're the right person for me. Now, when it comes to feature films, you have a lot of other things to consider. How sellable the film's going to be. Investors want to see big names. That's a different kettle of fish altogether. But if it was up to me, I don't care about status. I just want the best actor for that role. That's my casting process. And I did exactly the same for the short film. I wrote Death Valley in a few days, actually. I wrote it, and then I started a casting process. So it was like reaching out to casting agencies in LA, reaching out to friends, and just spreading the word. It was just spreading the word. My budget was $3,000 because it was my personal money.
For Death Valley.
Yes, Death Valley, and I was getting ready to relocate back to the UK. So it's money was tight. So I thought I'm going to put like $3,000 aside, and I'm going to do whatever I can do. And that's what we did. I made it I was transparent, not big pay, whoever wants to, but I knew that I had cool characters that I thought would appeal to some people. And you'd be amazed at the amount of interest we got and the amount of submissions. People were sending me self-tapes left, right, and center. I spent a week going through self-tapes of like people auditioning for all the different characters. And I even saw the other day that some people have uploaded their self-tapes for Death Valley on YouTube. So I'll let your audience do that at another time if they want to go there. Dark place.
Is it something that they expect, or something that they're gonna just get off YouTube as quickly as they can?
No, listen, every actor brings their own personality into a role, right? And that's perfect. That's great. That's what makes different actors stand out for different roles. I think there's one on YouTube of a gentleman, and he did a great job, great actor. Just wasn't the vibe that I was looking for, but great. Like, I still want to keep him in mind for any potential other roles that suit that, because he's awesome. But it's just a different style and different kind of look to what I was looking for Leonard. But everything like happened really quickly after that, because DC was the last person to audition because he was on a shoot during my auditioning process, and he actually sent us an email saying, "I'm away. If you want to go ahead and cast the role, go for it. But I'd like to at least have an opportunity to audition." And we said, "Yeah, sure." And before that happened, there was another guy that I loved, and I thought that was it. I found it, but then DC took it home. So it was awesome. But that happened. That took about casting probably took about a week and a half, and then we just went to shoot in the middle of the desert, which is tough.
Well, I think to be honest with you, $3,000 was the budget for the film, and what you've created, the final piece that you made, is actually pretty epic for that kind of budget. I mean, you use cinema level cameras as well. You know, a proper production team on site, like you said, in the middle of a desert, shooting that film. Did you guys edit that film yourself as well, or was it sent to someone else to edit?
So I did, as far as post-production goes, I did about 95% of all the work myself. My father helped me with sound design and music. My DP helped me with color correction, because there were just some things that we needed to consider, so we did that together, and he helped me a lot with that. I'm very grateful. And the rest, the editing and things, we got some tips from big editors that we know in LA, but they were so busy, and obviously they charge a lot, which is great for them, but I couldn't afford it. So thankfully they agreed to help give us some tips and pointers. So I just applied that in the film, in the final product. And yeah, we did most of it ourselves, which goes back to what we said originally at the beginning of, if you know a little bit of everything, you can stay afloat for as long as you need to, until until you get a big enough budget to then have other people on board that know what they're doing, they're good at what they do, and they can help bring your vision, not anyone else's, because that's important that they're on the same page, that they help bring your vision to life.
Yeah, look, that short film that you made was very, very impressive. Now, the question I have is, where is that film going to go? Or what's in the future? Are you going to make a full feature film of that short film? Do you have any plans for that in the future?
So, originally I finished it. I put it on, we had a live screening on YouTube when it was made, and everyone joined from different countries, and it did really well. And it got to the point where that film won 20 international awards around the world. It got nominated for, I think, a further 3, and it exploded. Everyone who watched it said because I always love to leave at least just a hint of an open ending, not to the point where you're like, oh my goodness, this left me hanging. I don't like leaving the audience hanging too much, but just enough for them to think, oh, where's this going? And
as long as it's not confusing like all of Christopher Nolan's films. Initially, when you watch them, like, what is happening in these films? And then you have to watch them a couple of times, you're like, oh, okay.
Christopher Nolan's films require you to put a month of your life on hold just to study it. They're not. I don't think Christopher Nolan, I think, is a director's director. He's like, he doesn't make films for entertainment. He makes films that you can dissect and study and learn from. Which is awesome. But also, I get a bit of a headache when I watch the films for the first time.
Yeah, like Tenet. When I watched Tenet, it's like I was so confused. The very first time I watched Inception was the same thing. But Inception obviously is a lot more understandable as compared to Tenet. But he's also made one of my favorite films, which is Interstellar. I absolutely love that film. Yeah.
Interstellar's awesome. And I also love Inception. And what a phenomenal job he did with the Batman trilogy as well.
Oh yes, of course. Let's not forget that.
That was next level. What he did, I think he did DC such a massive favor back then by creating those movies. They are like amazing. And another thing that I love as a director, and if for anyone who is watching this episode and who kind of understands and would like to learn more about film, something that I love about certain directors, for example Tarantino and Christopher Nolan, is that they love to use celluloid. they love to use film. And I love film. I love, the look, the feel, the texture, just everything about using film for me is the best. We even tried to emulate film. I mean, it's never going to work the same ever. But I mean, I had no budget. But for Death Valley, if you notice and you watch it carefully, you'll see that we tried to emulate a celluloid effect. So there's a little bit of a grain and there's a little bit of a film stock style to it. But if I had the choice and the budget allowed me to use film, I would use it 100%. And I know Christopher Nolan's the same. He loves to shoot, and he loves to also use film when projecting the movie as well, which is, for me, is my favorite. It's part of cinema,
So I think from what I can tell from what you're saying is that you like to have as much realism using real world and real life aspects and elements in your movies, as opposed to, like Avengers, where it's a lot of CGI involved in that. Of course, it depends on the kind of film you're making, but with your style of film and what you have planned for films in the future, do you feel like you will try and do as much as possible in real life and try and minimize CGI? Or would you like to have a balance of both, or more CGI than real life? What's your style in that aspect?
Yeah, so no, that's a good point. And by no means am I knocking any movie with CGI, because I love all the Avengers films. I love all the Marvel films and the DC films. I watch them all the time. As soon as a new Marvel film or DC film comes out, I'm straight at the cinema watching it because I love them. But when it comes to what I know that I'm better at, with regards to other things that I can do, I prefer stories that are a little bit more, to an extent, a little bit more down to earth. Although when I was a kid, I used to experiment with all the special effects and things. But I would prefer, if possible, to use real things. And one of the many reasons why I would prefer that, if it was an available option to me, is that CGI is an incredible tool. But unfortunately, just like anything that's technology-based, it will eventually be outdated. And there will likely be a time when they'll do it even better than they do now. And it can become dated after a while. Whereas I think if you shoot something for real, it will just last a lot longer. It's real. You're not trying to create something fake. But also, again, CGI is brilliant for things that you simply can't do. There are certain things that is almost impossible to shoot. So that's where CGI comes in incredibly handy. Even simple things, when your budget's not massive and you want to dress a street, or you're doing like a period piece or something, and you just want the street to look like it's in the 80s. Yeah, you can get the cars and everything, but sometimes it's more convenient to use CGI for some of the signs and the shop fronts and things like that, instead of dressing the entire street with new signs and all that. So, it depends. I think CGI is an amazing tool, and no doubt there are going to be times where I'm definitely going to use it. But also, I just realized I didn't directly answer your question before, because talking about Death Valley and how well it did, and my preference, basically adding all of this together, because of how well it did, we are actually working now on a feature film, a Death Valley feature film, which we're hoping to shoot this year. And the interesting thing is because it's a very kind of crime, mystery, thriller, and comedy based film. It's kind of got a lot of things that I love, and if you look at other work that I've done in the past, there's a lot of beautiful scenery, there's a lot of kind of luxury things, and I just like that because I'm used to making projects on a very, very low budget, and I like to use free things to make it look more expensive. So one of my favorite tools to increase production value is using nature. That's why Death Valley, I wanted to shoot it in the desert, because I knew if I shoot it in the desert, it's going to look stunning. It's going to look amazing, you know, and I don't need to do anything. Nature does it for me. Nature just naturally increases my production value because it just looks cool, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And with the right sort of color grade on it, it'll look even better.
Definitely, 100%. You definitely need. This is the thing. As a director, I always need to have a DP, a director of photography, next to me that understands exactly what I want, because they're the ones that are going to bring my kind of the visual part of my vision alive, and that's a big deal for me. I know, and I've met and I've worked with other directors who are so engrossed in telling the story as far as acting goes that they don't care how it looks. And I've worked with big major Hollywood directors on feature films, because we also have a production company. We do feature films as well, like for other people and with other people we produce. And I've worked with big directors that have said the same thing, that have said, I don't care who the director of photography is, I just want to focus on my actors. That's not me. That's not what I'm like. I'm very picky about how it looks, everything. I need to be involved in everything, because my vision is integrated into every part of it. And that's why the feature film of Death Valley is going to be based in Greece, for a number of reasons. First of all, I love Greece. I grew up there. Greece looks amazing on camera. I think many people can.
Yeah, I think it's all over Instagram, isn't it? Everyone in Santorini and various other islands in Greece, and the views are incredible. So, yeah, I'm sure. Will this be a continuation from the desert, from the short film into Greece, or would it be a completely new start?
So it will continue, and it will answer rather many of the questions that audiences will have after watching the short film. And the short film currently is no longer on YouTube. We took it down from our YouTube channel because it's now exclusively streaming on Clipist. And Clipist is Google's #1 ranking short film streaming platform. It is literally the Netflix of short films. They've released an app. They have obviously an incredible website. They're partners with Kino Film Festival in London, which is huge. They're a big deal. They're a big deal, and they picked it up, and now it's for free. Everyone can watch it for free in all their short films. But it's literally the Netflix of short films. So it's awesome that Death Valley has that as its home.
Well, I'll leave a link to that in the description. So you guys, if you want to check that out, hit that link below, and then you can view this incredible short film that we're talking about.
We had so much fun with that. And some fun facts, I set aside 2 days to film that. We were going to shoot, we only had 4 hours each day because we wanted to shoot during the golden hours when the sun is setting, because it's got a very kind of like sunset vibe. And we were in a race against the sun. But the first day was so windy we could not film anything. So it was rendered completely useless. So we stayed in a massive motorhome that we hired. I was driving this 11-meter, 41-foot motorhome around California. We basically boondocked there. We stayed there. Some of the crew even set up a tent outside because it was really cool. And we stayed there, and then we filmed the next day. But because the next day was our last day, we literally had one camera. We had a crew of around, I think, 13, 14 people. But we had one camera, 4 hours, and 12 pages to shoot. And somehow we did it.
Which camera did you guys use?
So again, very fortunate because my DP, who's great, he reached out to a friend of his who owns an Arri Alexa Mini LF, and they've shot awesome movies on that camera, and we managed to get hold of it without having to pay anything. So that I'm again super grateful. I had just bought a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K a few weeks before this film, and And I thought, we can shoot on that if we have to. There's nothing. It's an awesome camera. They call it the baby Alexa, right? But my DP Dennis, he said, let me try something. And then he came back a couple of hours later and he said, we have an Alexa. And I was like, wow. So it was, a lot of things went our way. But still, the budget, like what we actually paid, was about $3,000, and it looks and feels like a lot more than that, which I think is important, because that's the approach I want to take, and I do take with all the projects that I'm currently working on.
I mean, having a budget like that is obviously limits what you can do, and again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about shooting everything for real, or trying to integrate as much or as little CGI into there as you can as well. Could you share some, because I know you've raised funds for your films in the past and spoken to investors, right? Could you share some details of what that's like, and what do these investors look for when it comes to, hey, can I have a couple of million to shoot this feature film or short film, whatever it is that you're working on? What do they look for, and how do you approach people as a director in your current position?
Yeah, of course. So there's where do I start? So basically, if you think about it, there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people trying to get their films made, right? So that's everywhere. And they no doubt speak to investors and producers, and whether they're located in LA or anywhere internationally, they're trying to get funds for their film, right? A lot of them apply for government grants and anything basically that they can get their hands on. And especially I think because investors know that, everyone's trying to get a film made. If an investor is looking for a project, they'll find one. There's so many out there. But the issue for investors is that which project is good and which is bad, because there's this kind of running theme when it comes to the financials of independent filmmaking, that investing in film is pointless because you lose your money. That's the main idea. Like it's.
But that's not the case, right? Because some films do incredibly well, and it makes the investors a huge amount of money.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's the thing. But that's the thing. If producers know how to make a successful movie, that's great. That's fine, because they'll always make money because they'll know how the industry works. But unfortunately, it is true that many investors will fund movies and they'll never get their money back. That's why a lot of them are scared to invest in films, right? And especially when you compare investing into motion pictures as opposed to investing into like real estate, which is, you can't even compare it. Like if I had never if I had a bunch of money and I'd never made any investment before, and I was looking at different investments to make, I wouldn't even consider film. I'd say, no, I'm going to go into real estate, look at the yield and look how much money I can make here. And so investing in film is a different kind. It's a different world, because first of all, you get many perks and benefits, and you be on set and you can act and you can meet the actors and directors and producers and whatever. That you're in that world. Red carpet premieres, you get to go there, you feel cool, you're on the red carpet and all that. That, like, you've got that side which appeals to many investors. But also movies can be extremely profitable, even independent films, right? But it's how you make them, what approach you take. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm primarily a producer, because I'm not. I have executive produced, and I do executive produce movies because my wife and I have a production company, and we work on our films, we work on other people's movies that we partner up with. We have loads of partners in LA and internationally, in Australia as well. But it all depends on your basically business model. Each movie in itself is basically a new business plan. It's a new business. You're setting up an entirely new project. So it's never going to be the same, just conveyor belt one after the other. There are different ways. There are some people that will put a slate together of 5, 6, maybe more movies. They'll go to maybe a fund, or they'll like an investor who has lots more that they'd like to invest. And then what they'll do, they'll fund all the movies at the same time, and some of them will fail, some of them will do better. And at the end of the day, they'll balance out, they'll make money. So that's one way to do it. Doesn't work for everyone. We have a slate of about 7 movies that we're working on. All of them at different stages, but the industry has changed a lot and very quickly. So the biggest kind of major change happened when DVDs basically became obsolete. And a great reference for this, that if your audience is interested in this topic, I would highly recommend they watch, is when Matt Damon gave an interview doing the Hot Ones challenge on YouTube. That's a great interview because he talks about this, and it's I couldn't say it better myself, but he mentions this exactly. When DVDs became obsolete, the genres that sell changed, because basically what would happen is when DVDs were still a major thing, you'd make the film, you'd have a theatrical release, you'd get a bunch of money, then there'd be a little quiet period, and then the DVDs would come out, and it was like a second revenue stream. And because people used to buy DVDs a lot, depending on the actors and directors and the type of movie, it was easier to sell genres like dramas and like wholesome family movies and stuff, which are the genres that I love, like biographies. I love those things. I love like real life stories and things. So it wasn't a problem back then. And also, again, because tying this into your question as well, investors wouldn't have a problem in investing that, because they knew that eventually they'll get their money back because of the business model back then. Then DVDs became obsolete. Things changed a lot, because then people were relying more on theatrical sales, and the things that would take someone out of their house to go to the cinema, the genres started evolving a little bit, and they started veering more towards superhero franchise movies, action movies in general. Action films sell a lot, even horror, those kind of genres, and kind of flat out comedies. People love those kind of genres, and the more kind of romantic comedies or dramas kind of went downhill, because people wouldn't go out with their buddies in the evening to go and watch The Notebook or something. I mean, The Notebook obviously came out when DVDs were still a big deal, but that kind of genre of movies, you wouldn't get your buddies together and go and watch a drama. It just went downhill. And then another major change happened when COVID hit. And then obviously that was a major change for so many different reasons. But what happened, especially after COVID, is that now your major source of viewership is streaming platforms. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, all of them. And again, how many companies launched their streaming platform during COVID? So many of them.
I think digital content as a whole, even things like YouTube, for example, even that became extremely, extremely popular because so many people started recording digital content. And I think that's also one of the reasons, or one of the factors that actually influenced me to start doing this. I started watching a lot of podcasts, and a lot of people were consuming that content. I think that's one of the big reasons why Andrew Tate started to skyrocket in popularity as well, because of online presence, online consumption of content. So I think he chose the time perfectly for that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Listen, everyone is online now, right? Everyone is online, and the thing is, I like as a director who, I know where I'm going when it comes to like my career path. I know where I want to go, and I'm heading in that direction. And sometimes you have to swim against the tide because it's very difficult, and you have to deal with people in the industry, especially when you're an independent company. You have to deal with very difficult, sometimes very rude, and sometimes just horrible people. You have to deal with that. That's part of life. But because anyway, I know where I'm heading, and it's always my kind of biggest passion, as I mentioned earlier, was like theatrical, cinema, that kind of thing. And the thing that's sad is that so many people nowadays, because you can see it in what's happening to the industry, they just prefer to sit home and watch a movie on their TV, sometimes on their phone, which is absolutely fine. It's convenient. I sometimes watch films and things on my phone, especially if I'm traveling. But for that to become the mainstream way of watching movies, that worries me a little bit.
Do you think cinema is dead? Do you think it can ever be revived to the level it used to be, where everyone would love to go cinema?
That's a tough question, because I can see what's happening now, where, you know, everything is online and it's very convenient, and I hope that kind of continues as an option, but I really hope not. I really hope that cinema doesn't die out, because it's not just the fact you're watching a film, it's an experience. And when you think many years ago, cinema was an even cooler experience than it was now, because sometimes you just have intermissions. It was like sometimes it was 3-4 hours of being at the cinema with like snacks and, you know, during the break and things like that. It was just ice creams, you know, it was such a cool experience. And although that type isn't as prevalent anymore, going to the cinema is still an experience. So a part of me, well, mainly, I don't think it's going to die out because it's an experience. I don't know if it's going to stay as popular though as it is now, and that's what saddens me, because everything I made, even short films, even Death Valley, the short film, I made it like with the idea that I wanted to watch it on a big screen. It's a short film; it's not going to be on the big screen, but I want it to feel like it belongs on the big screen. And that's the approach I take to all my projects. And I love the idea of going to the cinema, and I love going to the cinema, and I love when I hear other people go to the cinema, you know.
Yeah, I used to love that as well. Back in uni days, you know, we used to like get your exams done, or just like have a long week, and then on a Friday night, just like, you know what, let's just go to the cinema. And it was, like you said, it was a fun experience to just go cinema. And back then, tickets used to be like, it sounds crazy when you say it now, but tickets used to be about £3.50, £4.50, less than $5 per ticket. Now, I don't even know, they're like $20, $25 per ticket, which is ridiculous, right, in comparison. But I think, you know, inflation in general and things like everything increasing in price is also potentially another reason why people don't like going cinema. Because, you know, you go to the cinema, you want to get a Coke and a popcorn or something like that. Prices of that you end up paying like $20, $25, you know, sometimes even more, plus the ticket. So you end up spending like $100 with your entire family. And in today's day and age, you can just sit there and pay less than $10 for Disney Plus and watch everything that you want, rather than just going there for one day and watching one film and ending up spending $100. So I think it's a financial aspect as well, where people don't want to spend money. They just find it easier and convenient to be at home to just watch, you know, not just one movie, but, you know, all the movies available on that platform by just paying one standard monthly fee.
Exactly. And that's exactly why the industry's changed. And that's exactly why, because I'm trying to tie in also like previous questions that you answered as well, and to just tie everything in. That's also why investors are quite, especially experienced investors in film, they're very they scrutinize everything when it comes to every project. Everything has to be perfect. They have to have sales estimates. They need to see who you're with and talking to with regards to sales. They need to know. They need to have guarantees. They everything needs to be there, because the industry's changed. And in order for movies to make money now. Producers, and again, I'm not pretending I'm primarily a producer because I'm not. My wife is, and I know you're gonna have a whole episode with her, and she'll have a lot more details to tell you about this. But producers, good producers, know how to adapt their approach to meet the standards of where the industry's heading. And as a director, I still wish that we could just have theatrical releases and great, everything's at the cinema, and then maybe buy DVDs later, or maybe later it will be on some streaming platform or something. But that's not always going to be the case. So streaming platforms now are the biggest revenue stream for a film, and also for the investors to get their money back. It's mainly going to be the major money is mainly going to come from the deal that you make to put your film on the streaming platform. So the approach that we take as our production company, Opulence Pictures, the approach that we take with all our films that we produce in-house is we produce them ourselves. So we put all the components together. I'm not directing every film that we're producing. I'm directing most of them. But even ones that I'm not directing, what we'll do, we'll attach a director, notable, so the investors won't worry. Then we'll get notable cast, and we'll get obviously the LOIs from investors. We have to get all of that done simultaneously. We'll package everything. We will then make the movie. We're not relying on streaming platforms or anything. We make the movie. We completely finish the film, and the production value of the film, because we really want to be smart with how we spend the money. We always want to put the money on screen. Production quality and the production value of the film is much, much higher than what it would normally cost and what it did actually cost to make. Then you make a deal with streaming platform, whichever one that's going to be, and then the money on that deal is going to be your main profit. So it's the business model has changed drastically to kind of how it used to be. This has existed, but now it's pretty much the only successful way to make money back by making films. And if more people use that approach, especially kind of new people in the industry who are trying to make films, if they try and use that approach, that's how they will make money. But it's not just about the money. You also need the right people to make the film look awesome. You know, you have $3 million, make it look like 7, 8 if you can. You know, you have $5 million, make it look like 15. Be smart with how you use your money. Put the money on screen. Don't have 5 billion people on set. Have less, but have enough that you need. Don't go the other extreme, because then that could also be detrimental to your film. Have what you need. Don't overspend, and try and be smart. That's why my even Debt Valley, because I wanted to put all the money, which was not a lot, on screen. And it's the same approach I'm going to take with a feature film. I normally tend to keep locations to a minimum, cast to a minimum that's needed, and I just try to keep things simple. Because when they're simple, I can focus on making a good story work within those parameters. You know, if I start having explosions and the White House gets involved and helicopters come and I've got like jets flying everywhere, forget it. You know, that's awesome. If you've got an unlimited bank account, go for it. But if you don't, you have to think about how you're going to make your film be sellable. And it kind of, I try not to think about it too much, because I don't want the money side of the business to influence my creative side of the business.
That's a very good point you made, because not a lot of people actually focus on that. They focus on various other things, and then before you know it, they've run out of budget. And then the movie ends up being not as good quality as you expected it to be.
And actually, my wife and I have worked with some people who are great at their job, but they are more used to working on studio projects. And no matter how good you are, at working on a studio project, because when you're working on a studio project, you don't think about funds. You don't, not really, right? Because if something goes over or whatever, you just have a chat and they'll sort it out, you know? So studio projects are like the ideal scenario. And we've worked with some people on some of our independent movies, and they've come back to us with a list of what we need to have on set, and how the money's going to be spent. And, you know, sometimes you go through the list and you're like, why am I paying like $30,000 or $40,000 to someone who's literally just making tea, or someone who's literally just carrying the briefcases? But when you're on a studio project, totally understandable, because, you know, these are legit roles. You'd be interested if you went through a budget for a film and you saw some of the job roles. They exist. But when you're dealing with independent film, you have to cut cost. And you know, if I'm going to say $40,000 on a person who's making coffees, and I can put that $40,000 on screen, right, to get maybe I don't know, some like a better crane or something for a shot, or maybe to put it towards the above the line cast. Maybe I can get one more cast member for half a day, couple of hours, something. It will increase the production value of my film, as opposed to paying for something that we can make do with. You know, if someone's not going to be working all day just making coffees, we can live still. You know, we can do it in between. You know, we're not high and mighty like, oh, where's my coffee boy? You don't need to do that. You have to think more practical about how you're going to get the movie made. So that's the difference, because studio movies and independent movies can be a very different world from each other. You know, so and actually we've dealt with many people that have worked on studio movies and they're great at their job. But when you're dealing with independent films and you have investors breathing down your back, you have to be much more creative with how you spend the money.
Do they always want money in return, or do they want like an introduction to a famous Hollywood celebrity or something like that? Is it always a monetary return they look for?
Number one concern for the majority of investors is a return on their investment, and perks. So every deal is different. We've worked with countless investors on countless projects. Every investor is different, and what appeals to them is different. And also every deal for every movie is different, because depending on who's producing the movie as a team, and what the priorities are for that movie, you're not always able to give away the same perks for every movie. So, for example, depending again on the type of investment that you're looking for, like we've worked on movies where it's a very simple kind of loan investment. So, you know, we're asking for like, I don't know, 1 million for example, which is not the whole budget. We're just looking for an investment of 1 million, and we'll give the investor back an extra 200,000-300,000 on top of that, and the opportunity to visit set. And it's kind of as simple as that, right? It's like a gap financing, just a simple loan agreement. There are other deals that we've also made in films that we've worked on, where we will offer the investor not only their money back and a return on their investment, but also equity in the film. So a piece of the copyrights, basically, or a piece of the copyrights of the project, which potentially could spread over to sequels as well, or also back ends, like a percentage of the profits at the end. So it really depends on each the circumstances of each movie, and also it can depend on how desperate you are. And what I mean by that is, there are films sometimes that are almost like they've got everything attached, and an investor falls out or drops out or something, and then you've only got like a few months before you're scheduled to start filming, and you got cast, and your cast is retained on pay or play offers. So basically, if you don't shoot on the day, they have every right to leave and they take their money, because that's what a pay or play offer is. If it doesn't happen, they get their money anyway. So if you're in a desperate and pretty dire situation, some producers can offer the investors more than what they normally would, just to be able to secure that little bit of funding they need. So it really depends. But yeah, investors, primarily they're investors, so they want a return on their investment. At the very, very bare minimum, they want their money back. And then perks on top. Again, some investors, we've worked with investors that have family members that want to break into the industry. We've worked with investors that have like a girlfriend, wife, or daughter or son or family member that wants to act. So for them, it might be more important to give the money, get a return on investment, and take my family member, give them a little role in the film as well. So it's creative. With every film, it's creative. It's, as I said earlier, it's like a unique business plan where you just tailor it to the needs of the film.
And is it easier to approach the same investors for future films, or is it a case of where you got to look for a new one? I mean, of course, you know, going back to old customers or clients you worked with previously is the easiest way to get return of business, right? But with the film industry, obviously, I don't know how it all works. So is it easier to approach the same investors again for future films, or would it all depend on the budget that's required for that particular film? Because obviously, as you become more well-known in the industry and you've got more experience under your belt, etc., you would want to have a much higher production each time. Would that be the limiting factor of who you go to?
One of them, yeah. So, as you mentioned earlier, if you have investors that you work with and you've hopefully you've done them proud and you've given their money back and you have a good, safe business relationship, of course you work with them again on other projects. But it's very unlikely that you'll get one investor to fund an entire film. That normally never happens. Unless obviously they're a friend or whatever. There are cases where it does happen, but I'm saying the majority of the time, investors always want to share risk.
They know what they're doing, of course. They don't want to have it all in one, all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
Of course, and they're smart. They're smart people. It's normally the hardest to get the first investor. It's from our experience. Even if you have an investor that's willing to put 25 or 30% of the budget in as the first investor, it's always easier to get other investors after. Even if the initial investment is not big, but your investors know that then they're sharing their risk to some extent with someone else, 2, 3, maybe 4 people. You know, there's it really depends. So it's very unlikely that we get one investor to do one entire film. So what you can do is make films which are higher and higher in budget as you become successful and you start selling them, and you've got a thing going on, the ball's rolling. You've got sales agents you work with, you've got other maybe executive producers you work with, you've got directors and cast that you normally work with. It's not a coincidence that some of the biggest directors these days, most of the time they work with the same cast. Because you form a little family of, you know, and you guys have worked well together. Your audience loves it, which is the main thing. Let's not forget, a film should be made solely for the entertainment and enjoyment of your audience. You know, you should, as a director, number one priority is them, right? Give them something that they will enjoy and they will want to watch more things that you offer them, you know? And then once you have that rolling, yeah, of course, you go back to the same investors. You can get more investors. It's like many things. Once you start even succeeding in small increments, it's even easier to meet new investors. It will be their first time, but you've worked with other ones before who will be glad to put maybe a little bit first, and the other guys will put theirs after. So it just builds. It's a
snowball effect, like you said. Over time, it just amounts to more and more experience and more projects under your belt, and it just makes things easier as we go. A couple more things before we wrap up. I think what you've mentioned, everything that you've mentioned so far has been very valuable, and I hope everyone who's watching this is getting as much knowledge from this as they can. What would you suggest anyone who's trying to break into the industry, who's new and really wants to get into Hollywood, and maybe they don't have really that much experience in terms of shooting movies at a short film level, but they really want to get to that stage where they are in Hollywood, maybe not necessarily be in LA, but have the kind of value and qualities that is required to be in the Hollywood industry. What is the best sort of advice and do's and don'ts that you can give someone who's in that position?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So yeah, definitely not everyone's goal should be to go to LA, because the thing is, let's not forget there are other types of films and projects that are a testament to their origin. So for example, British television, right? So England and the UK has made some incredible movies and projects as well. They normally want to stay as far away from the US as possible because they're we're British, we do our own thing. So it really depends on where everyone's goal is. But what I would say is, have a goal, understand what your goal is. Are you after the kind of Hollywood style cinema? That was always my dream and still is. Like Hollywood cinema is my biggest passion. It might not be for others. So first of all, understand where you want to head, what you want to do, what your vision is, what kind of stories you like, that kind of thing. And I'm going to answer your question as though I'm speaking to, it kind of applies to everyone, but I'm going to make it more specific to people who want to direct. And again, as I said, it applies to everyone, but especially for directors, because that's something that I can relate to. And again, it will apply to actors as well. It will also apply to any other profession within the industry. What I would say is do as much as you can work-wise so you can show people and get it out there. That saved me, because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. For a few years, can't remember what years they were now, probably between, I'd say, 2017 and 2019, maybe 2016, 2019, where I was based in the UK, and because there was no one around me who shared my vision, and I felt very far away, even geographically, from anyone that could relate to me in this industry, I made the sad kind of decision of just letting it fizzle out and die down, and I basically just gave up on everything creative, which is the worst thing, but I know many other people can relate to that and probably will hit points where they feel that way. Like, is it worth it? Forget it. Stuff it. I'm done. I'm just going to go get another job. I'll learn something else. This is a horrible industry. It's hard. So I did that. But it was coincidentally my old work, things that were already online and that people saw, stood out to some people, to the point where I got an email inviting me to LA to meet people. So I had given up, but my work was still there. It was still kind of speaking for me somehow. So what my advice would be is get as much work as you can done and get it out there for people to see. Brand it. Brand yourself, so people know you, they know your work. Although now I'm not, by no means am I major, but within the circle of people that I work with and deal with, my work, thankfully, I'm at the point where my work can speak for me. because people can like check out my website or my company or working on, and they'll see what I've done and what I'm doing, what I'm working on. And that speaks for me. I don't need to sell myself. I don't like the idea of that anyway, but I don't have to do it.
I understand, yeah. Because your work just talks for you now.
Exactly. You know, I'm not going to big myself up. I don't have to say, just watch my work. If you like it, great. If not, no problem. There's millions of other people out there that are so creative. Everyone has their own style, their own vision. Some people overlap. Some people gain inspiration from others, which I think is a great thing. And the difficulty, I think, especially with directors, I mean, actors, exactly what I said, do as much as you can, even for free. Just get your expenses covered if you can, and just act in everything. Get a reel together, get it out there. It's really hard, I think, especially for actors. It's incredibly hard to break into the industry. You can already go on like YouTube and watch interviews of the biggest actors in the world at the moment. I'm pretty sure all of them had the same thing at one point when they were younger, where they almost gave up or they were just depressed. No one's like noticing me. I'm working so hard. It's like, people even moved to LA or even to New York or other parts of the States to try and get noticed or mingle in with the right people, and it wasn't working. It takes time. But the difficulty, I think, especially for directors, is that I think you'll hear some people that will liken making films to like making music or something. I don't think that's entirely true. I'll tell you why. Because making music, nowadays you can use noises, sounds, or play some instruments and actually put something together in the comfort of your own home, in your room. But being a director and making a film, I would liken, and I've heard other people do this as well, they've likened being a film director to something more like an architect. Reason being, creating music you can do on your own on a laptop. It might not be like studio quality mastered to that level, but it can still get by. Being a film director is like an architect in the sense that, unfortunately, you need people, you need a team. Doesn't have to be a big team, but you need a team. You can't make a film just by shooting at the clouds, unless you want. If you want it to be engaging, that is, you need a team, and you need some money. You do need money. If you're going to make a product that you can show people and it will interest them, you need a team and you need money. So that's what makes...
That's the foundation at the end of the day, isn't it? Like you said, it's like real estate. You need a foundation. Without that foundation, in this case, money and a crew and a team, you're not gonna construct all those levels all the way to the top.
Exactly, and it's difficult. It's difficult. It really is difficult. But again, because it happened to me, and I'm sure it can happen to anyone. I was fortunate because it got picked up. It garnered attention. To the point now, that I have Hollywood representation. I have a publicist, agent, and manager in LA, and she's amazing. Shout out to Diana. She represents Daniel Baldwin, Alec Baldwin's brother, and so many other talented people, awesome actors and directors and screenwriters. And again, all of that happened because of work that I already did. If I didn't have anything to show, I wouldn't be on this podcast today talking about film. So I'm still in the process. I'm still on the way up. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, I've made it. Absolutely not. I'm still working hard. But if I zoom out and look back at where I started, or even just look back 3-4 years, not major, there's been a huge progress. And that all happened because I tried to build from an early age. So that's what I would recommend. Make as much as you can. Show it everywhere. By all means, make use of the film festival circuit. Film festivals are great for recognition. And, if you make something really good, 100% is worth it.
No, that's great advice, because not many people think of it like that. And I think I think many people who are trying to break into the industry, maybe not even just this industry, various sectors and various industries, genres, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people are afraid to either put themselves out there or put their work out there, because they might feel insecure about being criticized. Not many people are going to like what I've created, or I'm going to get a little of hate for it, and that emotionally will, potentially scar them. I don't know. It could really bring them down and make them feel like this is not going to work. I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, so I don't want to create any more content, or I don't want to brand myself anymore. And this is a very limiting factor with many people out there. There's some incredible directors, incredible filmmakers, photographers, architects, anything. There's incredible people out there, but their talents are always held back because, one, probably because of their mindset. Could be trauma from family members. It could be limitations that, you should have been this instead of what you're doing now. It's not a real job, or whatever you want to call it. There are so many factors involved in people's mindsets where it limits them from doing very, very simple things like just putting your work out there. And that small step could change absolutely everything. But they're too afraid to do it because of all their beliefs and years and years and years worth of programming. They say between the ages of 0 to 7 years old is when you are pretty much programmed for your life as a child. Yeah. And it's very hard to break that paradigm. And as you get older, it's just tough.
And let me remind your audience one more time of that quote I said earlier, which I think is from Morgan Freeman. Because you will come across horrible, types of people. Because listen, once you start putting yourself out there, you're becoming a spectacle for good and for bad. But as I mentioned earlier, brace yourself for stupid comments, right? From people that don't matter to you. And it's exactly, I'm going to remind your audience again what we said earlier, that quote: don't accept criticism from someone you wouldn't go to for advice. I'm not taking the credit for that quote, but I'm going to remember that, and I encourage everyone to remember that, because Hollywood, and I think every industry, but especially Hollywood, can be a very brutal place as an industry. So don't worry about what people say or what people think. You're not trying to impress them. You're trying to get from one project to another, hopefully growing in size, and that will bring you to a point where you're making a decent career out of it. So don't worry about what people think. And that's so much easier said than done. But that's something that I think everyone should brace themselves for, because you mentioned it earlier. Some of them can't stomach it, and they'll come across some people for no reason will just say or lash out for literally no reason at all, and people will just give up because of that one person.
But that's the industry, though. That's what you're getting yourself into, and unfortunately you got to bear it.
Yeah, but that's not why you do what you do. You do what you do because you have a passion for it and you love it. So don't let some person who is no part of your life stop you from doing what you love.
And I hope you guys are listening, because this channel is ultimately about your mindset, because your mindset is, Daniel, I'm sure you'll agree with this, is the number one reason, or the very key ingredient that directs your life and where you go. It can either take you in a very positive direction, it can take you in a very negative direction, but it all starts up here.
Yeah, 100%. Anything
else you want to add before we wrap up today?
No, I don't think. I think I've probably bored your audience beyond belief with my story.
No, I think they loved it. I think, I hope they've gained a lot of value from that, because you don't really hear much about what really goes on within the Hollywood industry, or how to get involved with the Hollywood industry. So, yeah, I think it's very valuable.
No, I appreciate that. As long as you're happy and you got what you wanted to get from this.
I think we did.
Episode. Great.
Yeah, I think we did. Where can people find you on social media?
So I have Facebook and Instagram, but I mainly use Instagram for work. So they can check me out there. My account is literally I am Daniel Couts, or even my website danielcouts.com has all my socials and my work and projects and everything on there as well. So if no one can find anything, you can literally just Google me, and that will lead you somewhere in the right direction.
You're on IMDb as well, but I'll leave all the links in the description so you guys can check those out as well. And if you guys want to reach out to Daniel and get some advice, find out more about what he does, maybe future projects, etc., just reach out to him, and I'm sure you'll be happy to help them out.
100%. Do you know what? And both my wife and I have this outlook, because it obviously wasn't easy. There were loads of ups and downs, and there still are. We love it. We absolutely love it when we meet people who are passionate about the industry. So anything we can do to help and support or educate, or tips, advice, or anything, 100% we'd be more than happy to help.
Appreciate it. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for all of you guys being on the podcast with us today. I hope you have enjoyed what you have heard, what you have seen, and taken a good look into what it takes to become a director and what options are available. We have a lot more of these interesting podcasts on the way. Of course, as you know, this is the very first one, so there's lots more coming. So guys, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll leave all the social media details for myself and Daniel in the description below. So stay tuned for more, and for now, take care.